All right, welcome to how Amazon is using Amazon Workspaces to enable work from home for employees and contingent workforce. I am Jeff Ferris. I'm the worldwide tech lead for end user computing at AWS. We have with us today Carl McGough, manager of client engineering for Amazon, Megan Michaud, the senior program manager for contingent workforce programs at Amazon, and Laura Hackett, the operations director for contingent workforce programs with Allegis Global Solutions. All right, we're going to talk today about the AWS remote learning and work solutions. We're going to talk about what Amazon IT did to enable those products internally, what they did, what lessons they learned, and then we're going to talk to our Amazon contingent workforce crew and we're going to find out what they learned as they deployed these services for their environments. And at the end, we'll have a little bit of time left for Q&A. So today's workforce is increasingly mobile, increasingly changing. Even before all of this, current environment, the globalization of the economy was driving the need to work from home anywhere with anyone at any time. And you can no longer assume that all of the work gets done within the confines of a traditional office, right? Organizations were increasingly looking for options for employees to work securely from any location. But the COVID-19 pandemic is causing multiple challenges to organizations around the world. Businesses need to maintain continuity as they ask employees to work from home. We've impacted how we live, how we work, how we communicate, and there's an increasing number of remote workers placing huge pressure on IT teams to provide fast, secure, easy access to those corporate environments while employees work from their homes. And sometimes those employees can't even get into their data centers or to the environments where they need to be to build out those solutions. This sudden and unforeseen surge just places a huge pressure on building that infrastructure. AWS is actively helping organizations quickly scale their technology and infrastructure to enable that remote worker, the remote students, and contact center agents to securely work from home. Whether it's to support that anywhere global workforce collaboration, or to provide agile endpoint management, or just providing that business continuity in the face of any disaster, organizations want solutions that they can depend on. We provide a set of solutions built on top of the AWS cloud that help quickly enable those environments. So what are the AWS remote work and learning solutions? Amazon Workspaces is our managed, secure desktop as a service solution that helps mobile and remote employees access the applications they need by delivering a cloud desktop that's accessible anywhere with an internet connection from any supported device. With Amazon Workspaces, your remote workers get a fast, responsive desktop of their choice that they can access anywhere, anytime. Amazon AppStream 2.0 is a fully managed application streaming service. With AppStream 2.0, your remote workers or students can access desktop applications that they need through a modern web browser. So AppStream 2.0 streams your applications from AWS to devices including Chromebooks, Macs, and PCs. You're paying only for the time that your employees or your students are streaming their applications, plus a reduced monthly fee per student or employee. You can easily scale your application streaming to any number of users across the globe without acquiring, provisioning, or operating hardware or additional infrastructure. And with Amazon WorkDocs, WorkDocs makes it easy to collaborate with others from anywhere and lets you easily share content, provide rich content feedback, and collaboratively edit documents. You can use Amazon WorkDocs to retire legacy file share infrastructure by moving file shares to the cloud. WorkDocs lets you integrate with your existing systems and offers a rich API so you can develop your own content-rich applications. Chime, Amazon Chime lets you meet, chat, and place business phone calls from a single secure application from anywhere. You don't need to switch between applications to collaborate. You can instantly change from a chat to a call, share your screen, or even invite more people to join your meeting. When it's time for your meeting, Amazon Chime will call you on all of your devices to ensure you're never late and your meetings start on time. Unfortunately, it's still up to you to make sure they end on time. Amazon Connect enables businesses to have a fully operational contact center that can be operated virtually anywhere. Agents, supervisors, managers, and admins can work at home and still be able to perform all their normal contact center activities. Agents can make and take calls, supervisors can monitor and coach agents in real time as if they were sitting in the same office, and managers can view dashboard reports, run reports, monitor service levels, listen to call recordings, and track performance all from home. You can set up an Amazon Connect contact center in minutes and start providing the best possible customer service. And then the AWS Client VPN is a fully managed pay-as-you-go VPN service that elastically scales to support thousands of remote users. Client VPN is designed so your employees can access any company resource, both within AWS and on premises, from any location with one console to manage all of the connections. You can create Client VPN endpoints, associate them with VPC subnets, and set up authorization rules so your users can access the resources they need, whether using laptops or mobile devices. We're going to focus on workspaces. So what are some of the remote worker program and business challenges when you're working with a desktop as a service? It's how do you maintain business productivity now that your users are working from home? How do you quickly provision remote access to users' key applications without shipping expensive laptops? And how do you still maintain control over that sensitive company data and prevent data leakage when the working environment has shifted so significantly? With workspaces, a user can connect to a workspace from any supported device using a free Amazon Workspaces client application on supported devices including Windows, Mac computers, Chromebooks, iPads, Fire tablets, Android tablets using Chrome, Firefox web browsers, or even from a Zero client. Users can connect using credentials set up by that administrator from your existing Active Directory environment. So if you're running Active Directory today, it's the same username and password that those users are already familiar with. You can enable multi-factor authentication with Amazon Workspaces by attaching a Radius MF-based MFA service to your directory, and that gives you that extra step, that extra factor of authentication to give you greater security in those remote environments. And really, a user just needs to have that workspace provisioned for them and a broadband internet connection to be able to use workspaces. With the supported client device, the internet connection uses TCP ports 443 and 4172 and UDP port 4172. Most users have not closed off access to outbound calls over those ports at home. Workspaces really simplifies that desktop delivery, right? It helps you eliminate a lot of the administrative tasks associated with managing your desktop lifecycle, including provisioning, deploying, maintaining, and recycling physical desktops. There's less hardware inventory to manage and no need for complex virtual desktop infrastructure deployments that just don't scale. Workspaces is deployed within an Amazon VPC, providing each user with access to persistent encrypted storage volumes in the AWS cloud, and it integrates with AWS Key Management Service for encryption. So no user data is stored on that local user's device. This helps improve the security of your user data and reduces your overall risk surface. You can centrally manage and scale your global desktop deployment right from the Amazon console. Amazon Workspaces is available in 13 regions and provides access to high-performance cloud desktops wherever your teams need to get work done. You can manage a global deployment of many thousands of workspaces right from the console, and you can rapidly provision and deprovision desktops as the needs of your workforce changes. So when everyone is able to return to the office, you'll be able to scale down your workspaces fleet as easily as you can scale it up. But what I have found is I actually prefer my workspace to a physical corporate image device. So I've been using my Amazon Workspace as my only corporate system for the past 5 years. I haven't connected to the VPN, and I haven't had corporate issued hardware for the last 4 years. So if this is your primary mode of operation in normal times, then when conditions change because of some unpredictable event, it's less change for me as an end user. It's actually why I started working with this service in the first place. I had started working with the Workspaces product, and I really just enjoyed the experience, and I wanted to help other people understand and use it for their own companies. And then we help reduce costs. Workspaces eliminates the need to overbuy desktop and laptop resources by providing on-demand access to those cloud desktops, right? It includes a range of compute, memory, and storage resources that you can change as the needs of your users shift. Because it's in the cloud, it saves you from needing to make a huge upfront server and storage investment if you're trying to build those same capabilities as a VDI environment. You no longer have to build for peak capacity. So now we're going to go over some of Amazon IT's corporate deployment. But before I turn it over to Carl, I've got a few words from one of the first production users of this service at Amazon. So without further ado, here's the Jeff I know you really wanted to see.
Hello, I'm Jeff Barr. I've been an Amazonian since 2002 and currently VP and Chief AWS Evangelist. I was asked to share the story of my journey with Amazon Workspaces and more than happy to do so for you today. I started using Workspaces back in early 2015, so a little bit more than 5 years in at this point. I was lucky enough to get internal early access, which I think we now call the Corporate Workspaces program, and quickly saw that this workspace was as fast and as responsive as my desktop. At first, I experimented, simply logged in, checked my email, ran a browser, did a little bit of writing, but quickly saw that this was the way to go. I could tell right away it was fast, it was responsive, really didn't get in the way. Used it like that for quite a while, quickly moving things from my physical desktop into my cloud-based WorkSpaces desktop. Not too long after that, I came home, installed the WorkSpaces client on my home desktop. At that point, my desktop was running Linux. It was a hand-built PC. So I had Linux, I had VirtualBox, I ran Windows 7 inside of that virtual environment, and then I put the WorkSpaces client on top of there. If you think about all those moving parts, you might think that there's lots of layers, there's lots and lots of ways that you could add some delays and some latency and some inefficiencies. Turned out none of that was actually the case, and this was super, super fast, super efficient. And using WorkSpaces from home was just as good as using it from the office. This was a great step forward for me. I had one set of windows, one set of apps, one set of tabs, a lot less to control, a lot less to manage. A little bit of time after that, I was introduced to this idea of a zero client at the office. A zero client is a really small, simple device. It's basically just big enough for all the different connectors for power and for network and for display and for keyboard and for mouse. Not a whole lot of config, not a whole lot of setup, no software to install or to upgrade. And best of all, there's no fan, and so no noise. So I tried out the zero client as the next step forward. After a bit of experimentation, I realized this was the way to go. And I made a decision. I said, you know what? My work desktop has served me faithfully for quite some time. I thanked it for its service, unplugged it. I think I was in Blackfoot at the time, and moved that work desktop over to the recycle cart. That was 4 years ago. I'm still using that same zero client. So at that point, so far so good. Now, I generally do about 50-50 work from home and work from the office. I do occasionally travel to big events and to visit some customers. So then I installed WorkSpaces on my laptop to use while traveling. Now, I'm going to admit, I'm fairly old school. I do really enjoy a large keyboard, a big screen. So my laptop is really this temporary device I use when I have to, rather than my central means of access. But once I had WorkSpaces running on my laptop, it became actually kind of magic. I suddenly had one unified environment. I could be at the office, I could be at home, I could be in a hotel room, in an airport, I could be on the client site. And I had one environment. I could get to those same apps, tabs, configs, and so forth, no matter where I might happen to be. Now, it turned out there was also this really interesting mental change as well. Like I said, I'm not a gigantic fan of laptops. I think part of that is because the laptop is small and portable. Whenever I start creating some new content on that laptop, you kind of subconsciously worry about, okay, what if it breaks or I lose it or it's stolen? There's this tiny bit of volatility and a little bit of nervousness, at least to me, about, okay, until something's in the cloud, it's not really safe and secure. What I found was when you start running WorkSpaces on your laptop, all of those worries go away. You don't think about your laptop as this very volatile, ultra portable way to perhaps accidentally lose your data. It's just a portal into the cloud, and we know that the cloud is going to keep our data robustly safe and secure. And that mental shift from I'm storing important things on my laptop to I'm using my laptop to simply access something securely stored in the cloud, that actually turned out to be the biggest benefit of all. Now, I actually had some fun with the WorkSpaces team along the way, and I have to say the team has been great. They've been very responsive to any of my challenges and questions and requests and ideas and so forth. Just to have a little bit of fun with them one day, I sent them an email and said, my Amazon workspace has disappeared. And they were like, oh my gosh, it's a big panic. What's going on? But what I actually meant, and this was in total seriousness, I no longer thought about the workspace as a separate operating environment. It was the way I got all of my work done, regardless of where I actually happened to be. So wrapping things up, WorkSpaces does what I need. It doesn't get in my way. It's there when I need it. It supports me incredibly well. Thanks for watching. Hope this has been helpful to you. Please feel free to look me up, send me some feedback. I'm jbar@ on the Amazon email. Again, thanks for watching.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Jeff Barr, for that great overview of your work with workspaces as an end user. Now, helping build that service, responsible for Amazon Workspaces at AWS, Carl McGough.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Hi, my name is Carl McGough, and I am a manager here at Amazon. And I manage the Amazon Corporate Workspaces, which is Amazon's internal implementation of Amazon Workspaces. I work for the client technology team, and we support IT services within Amazon and are responsible for managing the company's client devices. We have approximately 500,000 client devices within Amazon, and this includes laptops, desktops, and mobile devices like iPhones, Android devices. Our main responsibility is to make sure, one, that Amazon stays secure and that we have a secure client environment for our employees. Second to that is to offer a great user experience for our customers. Three of the big products that we utilize, especially during this COVID-19 response, that have really helped us adapt to this new situation are WorkDocs, which helps us share documents virtually. It also is a great thing to use when we're on Chime meetings, and we can cross-collaborate and edit on documents when we're not in the same room. And Workspaces. Workspaces has given us the ability to scale our infrastructure very quickly to handle this working from home model that we find ourselves in. Before this year, we did use Amazon Workspaces internally and quite a bit for multiple different reasons. Remote workers, it's not always easy to get physical devices to users that are in remote locations. It is also not easy for them to visit Amazon locations with a corporate presence, to visit something like IT to get their physical assets fixed. Corporate workspaces have filled this gap for many years. These users can use a personal device, can use an Amazon managed asset if they have one, to connect to an environment and have it managed by our global help desk remotely. The contingent workforce, you'll hear more about this later, but it is unblocked us to be able to get devices into the hands, or virtual devices into the hands of contingent workforces quickly. And it also means that we do not have to provision them physical Amazon assets. Mergers and acquisitions. This has been a huge win for Amazon. Traditionally, when we acquired a company and we had to onboard their IT systems into ours, there was a big delay for getting them access to Amazon resources. They usually had their own IT infrastructure set up, and it was hard for us to get them access to Amazon systems. This was easily solved by giving them an Amazon corporate workspace. They could now log into Amazon systems, access resources, and do the jobs that they needed to do. They could do this from their existing machine that they had. We didn't have to go away and provision them an Amazon corporate laptop so they could connect to it. They could just use the one that they'd had previously before it was acquired by Amazon, and they could connect to an Amazon corporate resource. And we got really positive feedback from this. Not many people like carrying two laptops around or two things that they have to connect to. Having one machine for all fit the purpose well here. Overall, we have around about 25,000 workspaces that were being used for their daily device, like Jeff. There are a few people, this is not just remote workforce or people that have another asset. It could be that they use it as their daily driver, but it also could be they use it as a supplemental machine where they run heavy workloads or long-running tasks. A lot of the time we had people using, excuse me, a laptop that they'd use it to run a long-running task on Excel, for instance, and then the machine would go to sleep, and their workflow would stop. This was annoying. So a lot of these users now use a workspace which they can just disconnect from, walk away, come back to, and it's in the exact same position as it was the time before. So the challenges during this COVID-19 situation, with many Amazonians now working from home and all new hire onboarding being conducted virtually, we needed a solution that would be able to support business continuity. No one coming in to collect their new laptops, or a way for them to connect day one without any IT support staff in physical locations that could image and provide new laptops. These were a couple of the challenges that we needed to get over. We needed to have something that was secure and that could be accessed from a personal device, because we might not be able to ship them a device in time. We needed it to be supportable. We needed to keep people productive without being able to access that local ID department to help them. We needed it to be all completely remote help. Cost. Our costs were going to balloon, excuse me, if we had to ship all of these devices out to personal addresses. A new hire orientation might include up to 500 new hires at a time. That is 500 devices that need to get shipped out to personal addresses. This alone is a cost. And then agility. How could we get people up and running quickly, even if we couldn't get them a physical device? Or even if we were getting them a physical device, but we know that the supply chain was, the delivery was just slow and it would take a week to get them. We didn't want them to be sitting on their hands for a week when they could be productive from day one. So the solution that we came up with was to scale out our existing corporate workspace environment. To do that, we had to pull a few strings, had to talk to our internal networking teams to get enough IP capacity to sustain a 5,000 additional workspaces week over week growth, which means a fairly substantial upfront cost of internal IP addresses. We then had to make sure that we procured enough EC2, ENI, and Elastic Block Store capacity. We did this by working with our TAM, which goes away and does all the magic on the back end for the Workspaces product and make sure that the account has the correct limit set that we can continue that week over week growth of 5,000 workspaces per week. We expanded our self-service. We have a web portal where employees could go and manage their workspaces. This was only open to AWS employees and not to all Amazonians. Not all Amazonians were able to get a corporate workspace. It also didn't allow their managers to self-provision or manage their employees' workspaces. So what we did there was we opened up that portal to all Amazonians, and we also added functionality to allow their managers to provision it and manage their own workspaces. This really helped us unblock that scalability. No longer did we have to rely on support services helping out an individual employee. Their managers could now help them as well. So in a working from home model, they could just get on their phone with their manager and say, hey, I need a workspace, and their manager could go and provision one for them. It also helped us with the new hire orientations. If for some reason one of our new hires got missed and they didn't get automatically created a workspace on day one, they could easily escalate that to their manager, and their manager could go away and provision a workspace for them. They didn't have to go through all of the support channels and the delays. They could almost instantaneously request and get a workspace. We did all this in 2 weeks with 2 engineers. The workspace product is a fantastic way to scale out and scale in very quickly and very efficiently. You might think that Amazon's a big company, we would have more resources than that to throw at this solution, but that's what we were dealing with. 2 weeks, 2 engineers, could we get it done? And we were able to deliver this solution. So the result was that we were able to scale our workspace environment out to be able to support up to 350,000 concurrent workspaces. We were able to do this in a matter of 2 weeks. This enabled business continuity, and we were able to continue to provide Amazonians with a secure environment to work from day one, even when they're working from home. We've seen on average around 5,000 new workspaces being provisioned per week since the start of March. We've been able to keep the cost of ownership down. We've built automated self-provisioning for all workspaces. A workspace for all new hires. That means that no human touch is needed. Our HR systems tie into our other automated tooling and can provision workspaces automatically for new onboards. The self-service portal that allows both managers and individuals further reduces the cost for IT support services by removing the supportability of that and putting it more as a self-service model, putting more onus on the individual. Also providing a better customer experience for them. No more waiting for support to help them. They can go and do it whenever they need. And it reduced, and the last thing, it reduced the risk of a lot of things. It protected. Users could access a protected and secure environment that they were able to access the corporate network without actually having to have a corporate issued device. They could use their personal device to log in through the Amazon Workspaces client. It allowed them to have secure access, or allowed Amazon to provide secure access to these new hires, and gave them the ability to be productive day one, even if we couldn't get those physical devices to them. Another side effect, one that we didn't really have as a target, but it really has helped, is it reduced the reliance on VPN. With everybody working from home, VPN or corporate VPN is another service that had to be scaled up. Because the Workspaces product does not rely on any kind of corporate connectivity, or a public service, this means that we didn't have to push any of those connections through the VPN, and thus reducing the throughput on those headends. It also has provided us with a good fallback mechanism for if VPN was to ever fail. Some lessons that came out of this: always be ready, because things can change. Make sure you allocate enough IP capacity at the start, because adding additional capacity can take time, depending on how your workspace environment's connected to your corporate network. But scaling out and adding additional VPC capacity, it can take time. Work with your TAM, make sure that you have enough EC2, ENI, EBS capacities to stay ahead of your estimated growth. Workspaces is a great product and allows us to scale almost effortlessly. But even though it's a cloud product, there is also limits that to the product, and we just need to be aware of those and plan for those ahead of time. Not everyone has a BYOD device, or not everyone has a personal device. Shipping with shipping hard during the COVID-19, we were relying on users to have personal devices to get them up and running quickly. This is not always the case. And hardware lifecycle management is also another big one. Workspaces, you pay for what you use. spin it up, use it, spin it down, and that's it. You don't have the overhead of a support organization like imaging a laptop for you, and then once you're done with it, making sure that it's securely wiped before it goes to another employee or gets recycled. With WorkSpaces, that's all done behind the scenes for you and taken care of. Really, it's as easy as clicking a button. I'm now going to hand off to Megan, who is going to talk about Amazon's Contingent Workforce Program.
Hi, my name is Megan Macholik. I am a Senior Program Manager for Amazon's Contingent Workforce Program. I am currently responsible for all of our service delivery and operations where we have our managed service providers, which I'll speak more about later on, in place in 5 countries. And where we do not yet have formalized programs in place, I work with our ancillary stakeholders such as procurement, HR risk and compliance, and legal, as well as IT, in order to ensure that our contingent workforce population is engaged compliantly. Many of you may not be aware of what a contingent workforce program consists of, so I'm going to start with a high-level definition of what a contingent worker is. We appreciate that the lexicon in this space and outside of this space is not always standard, and the scope of contingent workforce programs can vary company to company. So to start, I will provide you with a high-level definition of how Amazon defines contingent workers for additional context. At a high level, a contingent worker is any individual who provides services to Amazon who is not an Amazon employee and who may require unsupervised Amazon building access, Amazon systems access, access to Amazon's customers, or is an independent contractor. That last point is important because many of our independent contractors, especially in our creative spaces, may not have logical or physical access to Amazon sites or systems, and that's why that specific classification is called out. Underneath of our contingent workforce umbrella, Amazon has established 5 standard contingent worker classifications to help identify, especially through reporting, and manage various types of contingent worker engagements. And they are as follows, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. They are temporary workers, they are independent contractors, project-based contractors, outsourced service providers, and then a 5th, very rarely used category, which we refer to as a non-employee affiliate. The CWP was formally established in 2016 in order to provide global centralized oversight of policy, cost, worker classification, worker data, and compliance controls for Amazon's contingent workforce. Our team executes against this very specific remit by implementing policies across each region. So we have specific policies for EMEA, APAC, and LATAM, and then we also have one for our managed populations. We've built scaled mechanisms to ensure compliance obligations are met and regulatory compliance are met by country where required. We create comprehensive reporting to enable leaders to help make effective decisions related to their contingent workforce population. And we consistently inspect our contingent workforce landscape to uncover and assess and mitigate risk. As I've mentioned, our scope is global. However, we have formalized managed service programs, or MSPs, led by Allegis Global Solutions, or AGS, and Pontoon Solutions, who oversee programs in the US, Canada, India, UK, and Japan. I do want to call out, because it's important to note for size and scale, that our MSP partners have remit only over our professional temporary workers and independent contractors. And these programs are mandated by policies. Where we do not yet have formalized programs in place, the CWP provides consultative guidance to enable compliance sourcing, procurement, and engagement management for all of our classifications of contingent workers. And it's important to note for our non-managed countries, as well as our non-managed populations, which would be our outsourced providers, our project-based contractors, our non-employee affiliates in our non-managed countries. All of the above mentioned activities around sourcing, procurement, engagement, and onboarding are driven by a self-service mechanisms. So very different than our managed service countries. So with respect to this particular initiative, I think it's important to highlight and note how our managed service providers have helped facilitate provisioning of access for our contingent workforce populations in our managed countries.
Hello, my name is Laura Hackett. I am currently the Operations Director with Allegis Global Solutions, the managed service provider that Meg had previously mentioned. My responsibilities are overseeing the day-to-day delivery of the CWP program within the US and Canada. And I'm going to walk you through some of the before challenges as well as solutions that we experienced as a result of COVID-19 and just a massive change of workers being on site to now working from home. I'll walk you through the before aspect of how Amazon would provision hardware to temporary workers. First, they would go into an Amazon physical location to collect that hardware. There were policies in place that did not allow for the shipment of hardware, which was a challenge in itself, in that even with remote workers, they would have to physically drive to a Amazon location, even if it was hours away, to collect their hardware to begin and do their assignments. So that was how we provisioned before. It wasn't that hard. It happened within 24 hours of a worker being onboarded. They could walk in, go collect their asset, and be on their way. When we moved into the COVID situation, we were swiftly forced into a situation where the majority of the workers under the program were required to work from home. There were very few workers that were the exception to that rule that were working back on site. That focused mostly in like data center locations. So the majority of our temporary workers were able to complete their assignments and work from home locations. But that posed a problem of, as we continued to onboard resources, how do we get them their laptops or other hardware, since they could not physically go to an Amazon location due to stay-at-home orders, and or the Amazon location did not have the availability or resources to provision out hardware. So they couldn't come in and get a laptop. There were concerns around hardware shortages as well. If we can't get these hardware, or if we're shipping out all these hardware out to the workers and we can't get them back, then are we going to have enough hardware or potential shortages to keep provisioning out to workers as we continue to onboard? There was contractual concerns from the suppliers around, okay, now the work environment has changed completely. They're no longer on site with direct day-to-day supervision by the Amazon manager. We're worried about data integrity. We're worried about security that per our contracts hold us liable. There were just a lot of variables that went into play that we had to solve for, that were our challenges. So another variable that came into play were supplier contractual concerns related to the changing working environment, having workers now be at home versus on-site, day-to-day oversight by Amazon managers. Concerns around data security, data privacy, that they are held liable to in their contracts. So that was also an obstacle that we needed to think through during our solution.
Laura, that's a great point. And I think it's important to note that because our program is global in scope, that those supplier contract considerations obviously are nuanced by country. And so with respect to asset return by suppliers, it was a clause that we identified that was not standard across all of our supplier contracts. And so we quickly had to remediate that known risk. That essentially places the obligation on our suppliers to return assets in the event that a worker's assignment is ended during this period of time. So the onus, both financially as well as from a physical hardware perspective, falls to the supplier. Equally, I think it's important to note that many of our suppliers were asking for indemnification of their workers as they were working offsite from a security perspective. So these are many considerations that we in previous state hadn't had to consider before. And obviously now in current state and future state, we'll have to ensure that we have these provisions, both from a commercial perspective, as well as operationally, that we have the guidance in place for our contingent workforce to be able to work effectively and safely from home.
Yeah, those are great call outs, Meg. And I think, not to over highlight these again, but there were also additional things that we needed to obtain and challenges that we wouldn't normally have to collect as a result of onboarding workers, like getting home addresses, delays in onboarding due to shipping going out, and how that was even going to work with our IT services teams and coordinating with them to set up a process that not only would work at a regional scale, but at a global scale, the nuances associated to that. So all really big challenges that had to be solved for very quickly. But we were able to do that by using Amazon WorkSpaces. This IT services team, when we were moving to onboarding new resources, was setting up this as the default. So whether a worker was using a personal computer or that their supplier was provisioning them with using a VMS system, we were able to put that information into the system, and then through integrations that we have in today, that information gets floated over to the HR system, which then can help automatically send out and provision those necessary keys to work on workspaces. It also meant several things from a savings opportunity. If you utilize a VMS system to capture your temporary worker information, such as Amazon does, we were able to utilize that technology to capture the information and have it integrate over to the appropriate Amazon systems to provision out that USB key. Now, May can speak to this at a higher level, but there probably will be nuances globally where that may or may not be able to happen. But it's a good call out from an automation standpoint, from not only provisioning, but also termination of the access that can be utilized if you use a VMS system.
Absolutely, Laura. And I think, that is a challenge and an opportunity that Amazon is focusing on, both obviously in current state and for future state, is how can we, both for our managed and non-managed populations, collect information, which in some cases could, because obviously it's considered to be PII, there may potentially be GDPR implications from a data protection perspective. So it is absolutely an opportunity that we are investigating for future state to ensure that both when we return to a relative state of normalcy, that even where we still do have remote workers or individuals that require remote access, that we're able to effectively and efficiently get them the access when they need it. So I'm sure it's certainly going to be a consideration that many, if not all, companies will have in future state. And so we are investigating opportunities for both leveraging our VMS as well as our internal HRIS systems for the collection of this data, and whether we place the obligation and onus on the suppliers to collect this information on our behalf, or we request that the workers themselves input this data. But it's definitely a consideration that many should take in mind.
Yeah, those are great calls, Meg. Now we have the onboarding solution in place. Let's talk about offboarding as well as a solution. So now we have this provisioning out there. They're easily up and running by 48 hours versus 7 to 10 business days, because the laptop doesn't need to be shipped to them. But we had to talk about the solution for offboarding as well. So by using workspaces, we were able to turn off access quickly. I mentioned that integration before. Now, this might be very unique to Amazon, but because when an assignment would end, we would then send that data over to Amazon's HR system, it automatically deactivates that system. And we also have protocols in place if we need urgent deactivations, but it basically turns off that access, so you're not at risk of data security issues by having an asset linger out there. There's no assets to collect at all, no hardware. I mean, the USB UB key, those are probably pennies to actually produce and send out. And so typically we just toss those away anyway, but you don't have that laptop that is out there lingering that needs to be collected. So you also don't have issues related to lost or stolen laptops, asset just loss prevention altogether, like you just couldn't get a hold of the worker and get that asset back. You also could save potentially some internal resource time and money from the IT resources that you have collecting those assets that are re-imaging them to be redistributed out. You would no longer need to do that for a large population of your labor force that sits under temporary labor. So I think those are the biggest things that we learned from an onboarding and offboarding standpoint, that were the value adds of utilizing a quick solution such as Workspace. So our biggest results from this process, which I cannot stress enough, was something that we had to urgently react to, just due to the sheer nature of continuing to onboard new resources to make sure that business, it ran as usual. That we were able to onboard contingent workers securely and efficiently. I can speak to a engagement manager standpoint that by doing it so swiftly, we definitely saw a reduction in the number of escalations around managers stating issues with onboarding and getting their workers up to speed, and actually doing the physical work faster. We have increased security around lost and stolen hardware. And as I mentioned before, potential reduced costs if you are shipping out assets, hardware losses, and then again, those internal resources to reimage and redistribute your hardware.
And Laura, just one important note here, I would say, is I think that this has also given us as an organization the opportunity to really inspect and scrutinize when and where and why we are provisioning access to our non-employee workforce. I think in prior state, there wasn't really a strong adjudication of those requests. And now, as we've seen, when requests are coming through, we are really asking the questions that we didn't ask before, which is, what is the kind of the purpose of this individual having logical access to our systems? And so I think this has been a great opportunity for us as an organization to more effectively make those decisions and have a stronger protocol in place for provisioning of both assets as well as access.
All right, thank you, Meg and Laura. With that, we have some time left for Q&A, so please enter your questions into the chat window.